With even the smallest Hollywood film being comprised of a mind-boggling number of moving parts, it's little surprise that things can get bumpy once budgets hit the 8-figure region, dozens of production departments have to be coordinated with, and A-list egos come into play. Film sets are professional workplaces as much as anywhere else, yet the highly strung, ultra-stressful nature of filmmaking often brings out the worst and the weirdest in actors and filmmakers alike. Regardless of who was truly to blame, these scenes made it in the can after hours or even days of on-set adversity, where the tension could be cut with a knife. I'm Josh from Whatculture.com, and these are 10 movie scenes that were incredibly awkward on set. Number 10. Wesley Snipes wouldn't open his eyes while filming the ending, Blade Trinity. The sequence in question here was ultimately only included on the film's extended version, perhaps because it came out so poorly and saw a presumed dead Blade laid out on a morgue slab about to be autopsied. Of course, he wakes up, destroys everybody in the room, and makes his hasty exit, a textbook move for this daywalker. Much has been written about Snipes' erratic behaviour on the movie set, with co-star Patton Oswalt providing a comprehensive account of the actor's tendency to blaze it up on the not cigarettes, refusals to exit his trailer, and even getting violent with writer-director David S. Goyer, who eventually hired a biker gang to act as his security. Snipes and Goyer's relationship became so fraught that they'd eventually only communicate via post-it notes, which Snipes would sign from Blade, because, yeah, of course he did. When it came to shooting this morgue scene then, Snipes refused to open his eyes when Blade was supposed to wake up, requiring the movie's VFX team to awkwardly superimpose CGI eyes over the actor's own eyelids in post-production. It's amazing really, Snipes is being paid millions of dollars to just open his eyes, and he still won't. What a baller. Number 9. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost had a rare falling out over coffee. Hot fuzz. Small-town cops Nick Angel and Danny Butterman are cordoning off the grisly remains of a brutal traffic accident, or is it traffic collision, where they chat with the locals and cross paths with the sinister supermarket manager Simon Skinner. Despite Simon Pegg and Nick Frost having a steadfast reputation for being one of the tightest on-screen and off-screen pairings in all of modern cinema, they almost came to blows during shooting on this otherwise totally routine scene. The comedy duo apparently argued after Pegg felt that Frost was getting a little too big for his britches when he asked the film's assistant director to get him a coffee, while Pegg suggested he just do it himself. As a result, the pair didn't speak to each other during the scene other than where scripted, and due to the awkward atmosphere on the set, the mere 90-second scene took Edgar Wright 4 hours to shoot. They eventually got there though, being professional for the greater good. Number 8. Vin Diesel and The Rock refuse to make eye contact. Fast and Furious 6. The 6th Fast and Furious film concludes, as so many of them do, with Dominic Toretto hosting a cookout with his family, and, in this case, Agent Hobbs swings by for a quick debrief. Almost immediately after the film's release, fans noted the bizarre staging and framing of the dialogue exchange between Dom and Hobbs, with each actor appearing to avoid typical eye contact with the other, culminating in this one hysterical shot on screen now, where the two barely seem as though they even showed up to shoot on the same day. And though urban legends persist that the two had their separate takes digitally composited together, it does seem that the pair did indeed share the same physical space. This would certainly vibe with everything we've heard about Diesel and Johnson since being at creative loggerheads over the course of these movies. Whatever actually happened, it clearly wasn't good, and you can practically taste the cringeworthy tension while watching the scene. Number 7. Bruce Willis argued with the director over Kevin Smith's cameo, Live Free or Die Hard. In order to put a stop to terrorist Thomas Gabriel's plan, John McClane and his hacker sidekick Matt Farrell must visit the home of expert hacker Frederick Warlock Calidus, played by Kevin Smith. The scene itself actually plays just fine in the movie, but in his 2011 book, My Boring Ass Life, Smith goes into detail about Willis's frustratingly difficult on-set demeanor. The Clerks filmmaker claimed that Willis introduced himself by joking about Lindsay Lohan's crotch, always a good start, and when shooting finally started, he objected at length over Warlock staying sat down in his chair when McClane entered the room, reasoning that he should get up to talk to a cop. Willis couldn't let this go, and over the course of a 14-hour day, not a single piece of film ended up being shot due to his whining. A compromise was eventually reached where Warlock would start the scene sitting and eventually get up before sitting down again, apparently appeasing Willis after he held up filming for an entire day. Number 6. Beth Williams swam with real human skeletons and nobody told her. Poltergeist. The scene in question here is the iconic moment where poor Diane Freeling, played by Beth Williams, slips into her muddy swimming pool and takes a soggy dip with a parade of skeletons buried underneath. Creepy, right? Well, just wait, it gets better. And by better, I mean absolutely traumatizing. An urban legend has persisted ever since Poltergeist's release that the production designers ended up using real skeletons, and that this is the reason for the so-called Poltergeist curse, where several members of the production died unnatural deaths in the years following shooting. Whatever your stance on the curse though, Williams herself confirmed in more recent years that she was indeed swimming around with actual human remains for 5 days straight, and nobody told her until later on during shooting. She said, and I quote, "In my innocence and naivete, I assumed that these were not real skeletons. I assumed they were prop skeletons made out of plastic or rubber. I found out, as did the whole crew, that they were using real skeletons because it was far too expensive to make fake skeletons out of rubber." End quote. Yikes. Number 5. Stanley Kubrick bullied Shelly Deval to the point of a nervous breakdown. The Shining. Alright, this one is just kind of horrible. The unforgettable sequence where Wendy Torrance tries to fend off her husband Jack's murderous advances with a baseball bat is iconic, but the real-life context of it makes it that bit less enjoyable. Much has been written of director Stanley Kubrick's flagrant abuse of Deval over the course of filming his horror masterpiece, which included routinely criticizing her performance and instructing the crew to be standoffish with her. This reportedly reached its apex during filming of the baseball bat scene. A mind-blowing 127 takes were shot before Kubrick was ready to move on, which, given the enormously intense nature of the sequence, would be extremely taxing for just about any actor. As a result of this scene and the generally stressful nature of Kubrick's combative bullying attitude towards her, Deval became ill for many months, even causing her hair to fall out. How much the filming contributed to Deval's later mental health issues can never be quantified, but it's honestly tough to watch the scene in question now without considering just how much of Deval's performance really isn't much of a performance at all. Number 4. Toby Maguire almost drowned while filming the iconic kiss, Spider-Man. A kiss almost every nerd out there, including me, has tried to replicate. After saving Mary Jane Watson from some muggers, Spider-Man receives an upside-down snog from MJ in the pouring rain. As great as the end result looks, shooting the scene wasn't quite as romantic as it appeared. The big problem, inevitably, was Maguire being suspended upside down for lengthy periods of time in order to shoot the sequence. This resulted in the fake rainwater running down his face and into his nose, creating the sensation of drowning. Given that Maguire had to keep his other airway locked to Kirsten Dunst's lips, he struggled to sneak in a few scant breaths while kissing her. In Maguire's own words, quote, "There was rain pouring up or down my nose, I couldn't breathe, and I was gasping for breath out of the corner of Kirsten's mouth." End quote. Number 3. Native American extras stormed off the set amid racism accusations. The Ridiculous Six. This is less one scene and pretty much any point where a Native American character is treated disrespectfully, such as Adam Sandler's wife Jackie playing a character called Never Wears Bras, while another is derisively called, Beaver Breath. Come on, Adam, man, you're better than this. Shortly before The Ridiculous Six hit Netflix, reports emerged of on-set difficulties with the movie's Native American performers, several of whom ended up walking off the set after taking umbrage with the film's insensitive, arguably racist depiction of their people. Nothing quite spells out awkward like working for one of the most powerful and successful actors in Hollywood while he's basically insulting your culture to your face for a bunch of people to laugh at it at home. After Sandler attempted to smooth things over with the remaining native cast members, the rest of the production reportedly went off without a hitch, and the controversy was ultimately forgotten about rather quickly. Still, yeah, it's pretty cringy. Number 2, Henry Cavill's big bushy Superman mustache, Justice League. Again, not so much a single scene here, but rather a good number of Superman's appearances scattered throughout the troubled superhero epic, where Henry Cavill's mustache had to be digitally shaved by Warner Brothers in post-production. The actor was already midway through shooting Mission Impossible Fallout when reshoots on the superhero epic were ordered, and he was contractually obliged to retain the bush lip until filming was over. With no apparent possibility of shooting around Cavill, WB hilariously pushed ahead, shooting Cavill as Superman with a gigantic, bushy mustache and, badly, painting it out later with costly yet laughably ineffective CGI. Between his voluminous facial hair and the dots strewn across his face for VFX reference, it's honestly impressive that any of his co-stars could maintain a strained face while acting opposite him. Number 1. David O. Russell made basic dialogue a living hell for Lily Tomlin, I Heart Huckabees. An innocuous first-act scene in which Albert Markovsky is introduced to existential detectives Bernard and Vivian became the subject of one of cinema's biggest ever meltdowns. Despite the rather straightforward nature of the scene, it was nevertheless the cause of a fiery argument between actress Lily Tomlin and director David O. Russell. And worse still, that argument ended up leaking online a few years after the movie was released. Tomlin is shown to be unsatisfied with Russell's direction, causing him to retort back in a tantrum, calling her a see you next Tuesday and flinging objects off the desk she's sitting on, which hit a nearby production assistant. Meanwhile, co-star Jason Schwartzman, cool as a cucumber, is sat opposite Tomlin and moves not an inch as all this goes down. Tomlin did later downplay Russell's actions as being in the heat of the moment, but given the hurried evacuation of the set by the crew at the end of the leaked video, it's clearly a deeply uncomfortable time for everyone involved. This wasn't a one-off for the filmmaker either. He famously fought with George Clooney on Three Kings, made Amy Adams cry on American Hustle, promoting Christian Bale to intervene, and squabbled with Jennifer Lawrence while filming Joy.